tell me your name and where you're from.
My name is Jessica Lomatewama, and I'm from the village of Hopi out on Hopi.
Thank you for sitting down with me today, Jessica. So how old were you when you began to weave?
Maybe 20-ish,
About 20 years? Okay, and how long have you been doing this for?
40.
40. So who did you learn from?
I was taught by my husband's aunt. I befriended her when we moved to Hopi, and she said, if you want to learn how, come on by.
So what drew you to the process of weaving the wicker baskets?
Well, I grew up with my grandmother, and she was really never involved in the culture. So I've always had this desire to learn, to know what our culture is all about. And basketry was one of them. And so when the opportunity arose, then I snatched it.
All right. So tell me about your first piece you ever made. What was that like?
Idella is the one that taught me how, and she told me that when you make your very first one, that you go and we call it homoito, means to take it out somewhere with your prayer offering, and that's for the spirits. And once you make your first one and do that, you come back and restart another one, so you don't forget what you've learned. So that's what I did.
Okay. So we're going to talk about the cultural significance of the baskets. Like you just said, it's a big part of your culture. So is there any significance to the art forms that go into the pieces, specifically the designs, for example?
Well, as when an infant girl receives her very first one, it's usually a sunflower design. Then it can be any design after that until her initiation, and at that point, then it becomes more elaborate, like a kachina full figure image or the kachina face.
And what about the purposes of the baskets? So are they used in ceremonies or family gatherings or?
Mostly ceremony. We've got a basket, a women's basket dance society where they use them to dance with. A lot of it is used for exchange when our young girls participate in ceremony. Butterfly dances when their partners pay them. Then we in turn use these baskets to put our traditional bread piki on it, and then she gives it to her partner. Then our traditional weddings, when the big part of the wedding is finished, then the bride and her family will gather many of the baskets and prepare blue cornmeal, white cornmeal, sweet cornmeal, along with other items, and then take it to her in-laws. And the basket that the bride is carrying is called a Hopi, and we say that when the groom passes, that it's buried with him, and that's his vessel to the afterlife.
So are there any cultural restrictions to the artwork that you do? For example, is it restricted by gender, clanship, or?
Gender.
By gender?
Yeah. The basketry is a female art.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before there was different types of baskets. So where do they weave the different types?
Well, we have 3 different mesas out on Hopi. I come from the 3rd mesa area, so we do the wicker plated. The 2nd mesa women do the coil method. First mesa, the women are known for their pottery, but on all 3 mesas we make the yucca sifters. Okay. And we use the sifters to winnow our beans and our corn.
So I want you to take me a little bit through the process of weaving from start to finish. As a weaver myself, some of these might sound a little general, so if you don't have an exact answer, that's fine. But first of all, what materials are used in your weaving process?
The frame part of the basket is from the dune broom plant. All the colored sticks that I weave with are from the rabbit bush plant. And then the narrow leaf yucca is also used for the finishing of the basket.
And when are they usually traditionally gathered?
The rabbit bush is gathered in the fall. The dune broom is maybe from the fall to early spring or right before spring starts. And the yucca can be picked at any time.
Okay. And the materials you just mentioned, how would you go about preparing those to get them ready for weaving?
Well, first, when we pick the rabbit bush plant, I use a knife to clean off each single twig until we get, a variety of different bundles, and then dye them. And then when we pick the dune broom, we have to clean off the leaves, and then also use a knife to clean off where the buds were coming out. And then when I'm ready to weave, I pick out the size sticks I'll be using and then put them into damp sand, and the moist sand makes them pliable.
And the coloring, the dyeing comes from?
I use commercial dyes to dye mine.
Have you ever tried vegetable dyes?
No, it just takes so long to gather enough of either the plants or, just the plants to have enough to dye items.
Okay. So the tools that you use, you just mentioned you use a knife. Sand is another tool, obviously. So are there any other tools that you use?
I use an awl to help me tie in my weave.
And where do you get your tools from usually?
In my kitchen.
Have you ever made your own awls or knives or anything?
Not the knives, but Idella, she helped me find a tool. It's like an old screwdriver or something that was broken, and she helped me sharpen it. So I've been using it all these years.
So is there an appropriate time during the year to begin weaving?
It's mostly in the cold months because if you do it in the summer months, it just dries out too quickly.
Okay. Yeah. Is there ever a time when you shouldn't weave during the year?
Usually the month of December, we don't do it.
And how do you begin the process? So when you have your materials ready, you sit down and you tell yourself you want to make a basket, what is the first thing you start to do?
I make sure I have enough supplies. Because if I don't have enough doom room, then I need to go out and gather that, clean it, and then start, just start cleaning it, getting the rabbit bush, the color that I want to. I guess during that process, it's like you're already thinking about what you want to make and where it's going to be going, if it's going to be for a show or if it's going to be for a ceremony. That just kind of gives me an idea what kind of design I want to do.
So leading into that, my next question is, what are some of the things that you think about when you're weaving?
All kinds of stuff, just day-to-day, family. You think about the world, think about people in the world. But you try not to be unhappy when you're working. They tell us that if you're unhappy, that you put it aside because your feelings go into your work. And that's not what you want to be passed through. Because they also tell us that even though someone can't afford your work, they'll always remember it, and it's a form of healing for somebody.
So this is a question I get asked a lot, and it's one that I can never answer. How long does it take you to finish a basket?
I get that quite often too. So it came to a point I did keep track of the least amount of time it took me to make one. So I came up with like 19 hours of just sitting and weaving, not including the gathering and preparing of materials. Those are just countless hours. Right. All the way up to 50, 60 hours for my larger, more intricate pieces.
So for the 19-hour piece, about how big would you get with that?
I would say it's maybe 6 inches in diameter.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work that goes into baskets. Daily, when you're about to weave a basket, how much time a day would you set aside for the basket weaving process?
I would say minimum 7 hours working.
7 hours a day. Yeah. So my next round of questions is kind of your personal feelings about the basket weaving process. My first question is, do you think that this type of weaving is important to cultural identity? And if so, why?
I believe it is. Because when I go out to shows, I'm sharing with the people where I come from, and also letting them know that the type of basket I make is from that certain area, and just letting them know that if you see one in the shop, they'll know, oh, it has this raised center, this is from the Third Mesa area. So just, educating people.
So do you usually teach weaving?
No.
No? Do you have that desire to pass it on to the next generation?
Well, I've offered, if you want to learn, then you come over. Just like my mentor did, if you want to learn how, come on over. Yeah. And I've offered that.
So we talked about the designs and we talked about the colors. What do you think is the biggest threat to the continuance of this art form?
The drought.
The drought, really? So how does the drought affect?
It affects the plants. There are certain areas now that where I used to go gather, they're all dry. So I've had to look for other areas much further out. And also encroachment of people building homes in the areas that where we pick.
So are the picking areas completely within the Hopi Nation, or?
No, in the Navajo Nation too.
So when you're done with a product, when you finish a basket, what kind of feeling do you generally get when you're all done and you look at your final product?
Relief. Because in the very beginning, you're so hyped up and like, gung-ho, want to start working. And especially if it's a big piece, by the time you're like 3/4 of the way, it's like, oh, another inch or two more to go. Then what? Finally, when you finish it, then it's like just relief.
So my last question here, as an outsider myself, as a non-Hopi myself, there's a lot about this art form that I don't know, and that I understand I'm not in a position to know about because it's not my culture. So being a weaver yourself, is there something about the baskets, maybe the history or the cultural significance, that you would like people to know about when they see your work?
Probably the number one thing is the area that I come from, because I believe there are not enough of us Third Mesa weavers that go out and show our work. I'm probably maybe one of two that go to art shows with this type of basketry. So for me, it's a lot of educating the public.
Is there any type of networking between the weavers on Third Mesa? Do you guys work together or communicate with each other?
When I first started learning how, there were quite a bit of weavers. A lot of them have passed on now. I call it the group that I was with had a lot of older women in it. We'd have little groups in the village ranging anywhere from 5 to 10 ladies that would get together, and we would work at one lady's house and make the baskets using her supplies. She feed us at lunch, and then at the end of the week, everything would be hers. So we kind of go around, to everybody's home in that group and help each other make the baskets. That no longer exists. I don't know why it is, or maybe there's not enough material to go around, because you have to have a lot, already available for the ladies to work. But I miss that, and miss the, I guess, camaraderie, yeah, it's not there anymore.
So is there anything else that I have not asked you yet that you would like to share?
Well, I'm very grateful for this program. It gives me a chance to share what I know, and hopefully it'll touch somebody, and especially from Hopi Third Mesa, and have the basketry keep going. And we encourage the young ones to learn, because we still use them in the culture.
Well, I'm very grateful for you coming down and teaching us and spending the weekend with us. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.